I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body
But,
full of tats.
overall, it's just going to be basically another replacement for old Hawkeye and replacing everyone in the Marvel universe to the Marvel Sheverse. The
Um,
MCU.
I'm rolling my eyes at you
I'm
as
gonna
usual.
I'm gonna argue that point because Kate Bishop's been around 20, 30 years in the comics. That's not anything new. That's old.
No, he's just referring to them basically making most of the current lineup females, even though I
Yeah.
think that's a stretch because
Basically
there's still
replacing
tons of
everyone
males.
with. Yeah.
There's still
I
plenty of
think they're
males.
just replacing all the older actors to bring in younger actors that can do another 10, 15 years of movies.
No. And I understand that because ultimately their age is going to show on screen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that much is very obvious, right? But essentially replacing everyone and everything with so much diversity and,
But
she's the hero and,
but there was
it's,
but that's the thing though. There's always been diversity in the comics, and you know
no,
that.
no,
And
there
they
has,
learned
there has.
they already tried that in the comics and it didn't last.
Yeah.
So they know that's not going to work. They
Yeah.
got to strike a balance. You might
No,
be
no,
able to
I know.
replace
And
Hawkeye
But
with
this
a
is
female,
Hollywood
but
that
you're
we're
not going to
talking
replace
about, and
everybody.
but we also had years of only Black Widow being basically, it's like her and Agent Hill were the only real active female people remotely in the universe until Wanda came along. And even she was relegated to the side character, even though she was super important, until
Are
she
you
got her
serious right
own
now?
show. Well, I'm saying in the universe.
Oh, in the cinematic
Yeah,
universe?
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
yeah.
It's like
Oh, okay.
so.
Okay. I thought you were talking about comics. I'm
No, no,
like,
no, no,
Carol
no.
Danvers
I
has been
know.
around since the 60s.
No. I'm talking about the because that's where we're talking about the cinematic universe,
Okay.
not the comics. So,
Yeah.
but the idea
Okay.
that they're finally bringing in more female superheroes, which have always been a part of shit. I mean, what, half the
Yeah.
X-Men were female,
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Easily.
No, no, of course.
I mean, even the Fantastic Four only got 1 out of 4. I mean, it is what it is. But the idea that they bringing in female characters, whether for good or bad, let's just be honest here, it's not because they're female that it's going to be bad. It's that the characters might be written terribly. That's the only thing I
It's
care
the
about.
story.
It's the
Yeah, because
story.
Miss Marvel in the comics is cool. That Miss Marvel movie missed the shot,
Ser-
dude, because
oh,
they
you're talking
tried
about
to make it
big
something it
time.
Captain
wasn't.
Marvel.
Big time.
Yeah, Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
But
don't get that mixed with actual
this,
Miss Marvel that's coming.
It's the
Which
same character.
it's this whole subliminal message of women good, man bad, or women more powerful, man weak.
I don't
When
think that's what they're trying to do. I think what they're trying to do is saying it's not needed for them to have a man help them.
which is actually better in a way.
which is okay, but it's all in the writing of it.
That's what I'm
right?
saying. They missed the mark
When the
with
message
Captain
is so
Marvel.
blatantly obvious, right?
Yeah.
That instantly, without any effort in learning my powers or learning about whatever situation or anything like that, I'm instantly good, right? The whole Mary Sue thing.
Yeah,
And
But
that's
they
what
do
I got.
that with all the guy characters too, though.
And that's what I got
Yeah.
a problem with. Well, you do see it in some aspects in some movies. Yes, you do,
Ant-Man.
right? But
I don't.
you
I think
let's put it this way. Let's put it this way, okay? The last Star Wars trilogy, for example, right? With Rey,
that movie
all
that
of
only
a
had
sudden-
2 movies in it. That was not a trilogy.
all of a sudden, basically, instantly, she's just Wonder Ray. She's good at everything, right? Without any effort, she magically knows how to use the Force, even though she got a little bit of training from Luke. She's all the Jedi into one, right?
Okay.
Anakin, on the other hand, he had to go through training. Yes, he was Force sensitive. Yes, he was the chosen one, but he went through training and he made mistakes along the way, obviously, right? And but with Rey, oh no, she's perfect at everything she does, right? And this is where I have a problem. It's that you take these writers nowadays that take original material from, let's say, I don't know, 30, maybe 40, maybe even 50 years ago, and they inject into what they want into a character and make them perfect because That's what they believe today's society demands. And how should I put it? Essentially, they take the entire character and or franchise for granted as their plaything to mess with, and no respect whatsoever is given to the original source material because, you know, fuck it.
Okay, so let me see if I'm following, I'm tracking. So when talking about Star Wars, you got like the
Well, I
short
was using
little.
that as an example.
I know, and I'm using the same example, so we stay on the same area. The short little training montage, messes up a couple things, moving rocks, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, fighting their for lack of a better term, mortal enemy to almost a stalemate, and then boom, being like this super powerful Jedi ready to roll. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I just described Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back.
Well,
Ah,
yes, no.
ah.
Luke had to
Yes,
go through
no,
some
not
serious
yes and
training.
no. Yes, exactly. He moved some rocks for 10 minutes with Yoda, and next thing you know, he was fighting Darth Vader, and the next thing you know, he's the most powerful Jedi in the universe.
Well, I wouldn't say most powerful Jedi in the universe.
No, he was.
Yes, he
Because
was.
he was the only one.
He was literally he was literally the last Jedi at that point.
Well, that
Well,
he
yes,
knew
he
of.
was
That
the
he knew
last
of.
Jedi. But the point is, he still went through a lot of training to get there. In the
A
meantime,
10-minute
right?
montage with Yoda.
Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. Between say A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back
Hold
and
on.
Return of the Jedi,
I'm gonna
you
stop
have
you, Mike.
several years in between.
I'm going to
right?
stop you, Mike, because what you're about to say is that you saw training off screen that we never knew about.
Same thing.
And same thing with Ray. Ray had training off
That's what I'm
screen.
trying to point out. It's the
Like,
same thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, between episode 8 and 9, it's pretty much like immediately thereafter.
No,
right?
it's months. It's
No.
been months.
No. It didn't
Because
seem
they had
like
to
it
they
me.
had to find all of the remaining resistance. They had to find a new base, and she now had the books to try to learn from. She had Leia to learn from. We literally see her meditating and training on how to fight with the lightsaber, how to use the Force properly, how to try to communicate with the
Or
dead
am I
Jedi
thinking
that she knows
17?
exist. And do you think she just did that 2 days later? It's like, yes, she does have a lot of given powers, but we were given the explanation for that. Well, it's a dumb explanation, I agree, but
Mhm.
it's more like, and this is the thing, and we didn't really want to have a Star Wars discussion, but we're here now.
But
So,
I'm just saying.
but no, but the
we're just
point
using
is,
Star Wars as an
Oh.
example, but you can take it. You can take
You're
it
right.
anywhere. Look, Iron Man in a cave built a suit because he had to keep himself alive, and 10 minutes later was the most powerful superhero on the planet. I mean, it's in all of them. And all I'm saying is he's not wrong. It's not that they're not doing that.
Mhm.
It's the narrative that's being pushed
It's-
on the internet and what people argue and fighting about how it's some
oh, sorry.
trying to destroy the man thing. Well, if you go with
Yeah.
that, then you have to go with we did it to women for 100 years worth of cinema, because that's how it's always been written. You get a hero, you want to move them to their best area. The best way to do that is a montage. You can do it with Rambo. You can do it with Rocky. You can do it with superhero movies. You can do it with TV shows. They do a quick montage of them training, and all of a sudden they're at their peak of what they're capable of being.
Exactly.
And the only difference between then and now is now we're talking about a girl instead of a boy.
But I do think Mike has a point.
But I don't have a problem of it being a girl, right? Because it's the whole lack of the hero journey thing for the most part.
I agree
right?
with that.
It's like, boom, I instantly have powers. I know what to do with them. I'm going to beat, bad guy X, right? It's like
That's literally Luke
instantaneous,
Skywalker
right?
and Darth Vader.
But hold
That's
on.
literally the same story.
But
hold on.
But the thing is,
It's the
so
writing
because
is the problem, not the problem is it's the writing.
it's
So
the writing.
we
It's
get
necessarily the writing.
yeah.
I would say
So-
it's everybody on the internet's take on the writing. It's everybody putting their own juice into it. It is all those
But
females who think women empowerment means male depowerment. That's not what it means.
Yeah,
No, no,
It means
but-
making
but-
us
feminist
equal
movement,
with
yeah.
That's not what I'm
offspring.
necessarily getting at, right? I'm not thinking about women are taking something away from men. That's not what I'm getting at.
But
right?
that is how you come across, in case you're wondering.
Well, that's yes,
that's-
that's cross that way, right?
Yeah.
It's the
But that's because
writing.
he's making the internet argument. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's making it. That's why I said the internet says this.
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's his take
For-
on what the internet is pushing.
For example, Ripley, from Aliens,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Super character, right? Of everything that she had to went through. Like, look at Alien 1, right? The first Alien movie, right? I mean, she was totally inexperienced with this kind of
Mhm.
situation happening, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
She got through it miraculously,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So terrifying. I can understand the whole pathos of the movie, being in a situation, being with some unknown entity that basically essentially wants to kill you, right? Terrified character. I get it, right? Alien 2, she's extremely well prepared because of the experience she went through. uh to enough to warn the Marines. And after a bit, yeah, sure, the first bit of the movie, it's like, oh geez, it's just a woman and she's just panicking, blah blah blah.
The
We got this,
Marines
we're
know
big tough
best.
guys, right? But after a while they're like, well, holy crap, she definitely knows what she's talking about. We better start listening to her because she has that experience behind her, right? In movies nowadays and in shows, it's it's that whole experience thing for the most part in some characters and in some movies that is just basically thrown out the window. And it's like, oh, I have powers, I know pretty much how to use them. No trial and error for the most part. It just, I don't know, I just see it as something really sorely lacking, and it just bugs me.
But what I'm saying is, I think it's always been that way. It's just the narrative has changed because of the internet and people pushing stuff on the internet. That's what I'm trying.
I don't
That's
know.
why I'm making the comparison of Luke versus her, because that is a 40-year film gap between those two, and it's the same exact story. First movie, I think you have some powers. Let's go do something with them. Second movie, meet the master that has those same powers. Train for 10 minutes on screen, then go fight your arch rival. Then the end of that movie, you come to a standstill, and then there's a movie gap between that movie and the following movie. And in that gap, somehow you're now the best at what you were doing. That is literally both of those stories exactly in a shell. And
Yeah.
that's a 40-year time gap.
Yeah. And
So the only difference between then and now is they didn't have the internet back then with people going, it's this, it's because of this. Because I guarantee you, if in the 70s the internet had been around when it was the height of women empowerment and burning your bras and all that stuff, if that movie had come out then with the internet still available, there would have been a whole thing on the internet about, oh, look at this little farmer kid all of a sudden is the most powerful. It's just because he's a man and he has a penis and blah, blah. And look, the lightsaber is phallic shaped because it's his manhood. He's pushing onto others. It would have been
it's
all
just
that shit
men.
back then too. There's no difference between then and now. None, except for the availability for people to bitch about it.
Well, I will say,
Maybe.
here. Okay, can I talk? Because you guys have been going back and forth for a minute. Okay, so the way I see it, and we talked about it already, just mentioned it, it's the writing. And it's not that the stories have changed, it's how it's presented has changed. Because, yes, some of these things seem like they just are God gifted and they don't earn anything because they don't show the progress of how you get from one place to the other, except that's the writing problem. So, like Captain Marvel being
Yeah.
the example, she's this uber powerful person, but she also lacks humanity. She has no concept of anything, and there's a man holding her back in the very literal sense, telling
Yeah.
her not to use her powers and to keep her emotions in check. But as soon as she remembers who she is and the way she's been her whole life, she unlocks her true potential because people had fucked with her brain to the point that she didn't even know that she was human. She didn't know that anything. She also had no clue where her powers came from. Now, she had no mastery of these powers, technically speaking, other than shooting bolts. But it's just like, well, I'm going to use what I kind of know to figure out what the fuck's going on. And she made a lot of fucking mistakes and she did a lot of stupid shit. But it was mostly about her being a robot at first and becoming a person at the end once she finally remembered who she was that made the difference. But the problem is that we were shown her development as she unlocked her memories. We were given the badass tough ass right at the beginning
Yeah. She was
without
like
that,
part of their
and she had
SEAL
to,
team.
yeah,
Yeah.
she had to figure out her skills in narratively through her memories. So that was a very it's fucking Halo all over again is what it is.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
but I think the problem is that a lot of times Mike is right in that degree that you don't see these things in the same way. But it's also like with Hawkeye and now with Kate Bishop taking over, we saw her pathos being established with seeing Hawkeye falling off a building, being the only human fighting amongst gods,
Yeah.
and keeping up. And then she decides to base her whole thing off of that. And then we get her learning karate. We get her learning bow skills. We see her trophies. We see her becoming excellent over time in a montage. So that's one of the first steps to writing it the right way.
Yeah.
To getting a character. But then she's also incomplete. She thinks she's a badass. And then she's proven time and time again by other characters, no, you're not as good as you think you are.
Not.
So they actually grounded.
And this is why I liked that.
Yeah. So the Kate character, while people disliked her for whatever reason, I thought she was fantastic, but I like Haley Steinfeld, so there is that.
I do too.
So, but it was the first time in this particular chunk of Marvel that a female character was presented the same way as a male character. And in their development towards that. And then she learns from the older version of what she wants to be, and then turns out that she doesn't want to be that. And that's the whole point. Is like, and he's like, look, you don't want to be me because you don't know about the things that I was before you saw me in that moment. Yeah. And that's that whole thing. And the whole thing with the Black Widows is the same way. So
I get what you're saying, but then my question for you is this.
Yeah.
Avengers 1, the first Avengers movie.
Sure.
Hawkeye walks on the screen with a bow and arrow in his hand, starts murking people.
Yep.
None of us are on here going, well, I didn't see how he became Hawkeye.
No, I agree.
I didn't see any of his training. True. I don't know how he became good with a bow. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And I'm
he was
not,
just an established character. That's just it.
Yeah.
He's the dude with a bow.
It just is, so therefore it is.
No, I agree.
It is because you're seeing the age of said person, right? Because obviously he's like
in his 30s, 40s.
Yes. So, and obviously
we saw him
from
in Thor.
Working with S.H.I.E.L.D. that he has experience of some sort. Otherwise, his talents would not be employable, right? Especially by S.H.I.E.L.D., right? On top of that, and this kind of also harkens to, you know, the new Spider-Man movies, right? Where they don't have to yet again go through how Spidey got his powers. It's an established character. And sure, you know, maybe a lot of people don't know exactly the origin of Hawkeye. You know, he used to be a bad guy, blah, 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 you know, until he, you know, turned from the evil of his ways.
Basically, he and Black Widow have mirrored history, which is why they become best friends.
The point is they're extremely very established characters that you really don't need to dive into their origin story yet again and just take up more time, right? It's like, okay, we got a story, we're going to progress. We don't have to get into everybody's backstory because everybody knows who these people, for the most part, are.
Well, you know what's funny? The fact that Iron Man was not a mainstream headline Marvel character until the movies. Like,
he was we know him character by the time the movies came around.
Yeah, Iron Man was not important until they put him front and center. Yeah. The Avengers lineup was not that important. Nobody gave a shit outside of real comic heads.
They booted him to a D list on West Coast Avengers. Like, they kicked him out of the Avengers and made up their whole other Avengers, and they would just put their new writers and artists on that one and just let them fuck off over there because he did not matter.
He was not the core of anything at that point. He was not a giant leader. I mean, I know at some point he was, yes, but he wasn't the core and the moral center, so to speak, of the Avengers back then. No. He became that in these movies. And yeah, we did get to see we got to see Iron Man / Tony's development over time and his character flaws and all that. Same thing with Thor. But you're right, we never got that with Hawkeye, and technically we never got that with Black Widow, but they were dialogue through the movies they were featured in gave us enough of their backstory between Iron Man 2, between Avengers 1, between Thor and Avengers 1. We got both of those characters introduced. We're shown their skills. And given just some exposition without giving entire movie histories on their own. But we also know that both of these characters are just badass from the get-go. And you're right. Nobody cared that they were just badass from the get-go. Nobody questioned it because we just, like Mike was saying, if there's S.H.I.E.L.D. involved and they're being put forward by S.H.I.E.L.D., they must be badass, so we don't question it. But when it's a stranger...
The same thing applies to Rey then, because we know that Jedis are badasses, they're great with lightsabers, they have magic powers, they're going to fuck up the Sith. We know that to be facts from all the movies and lore that we know.
I know.
So if that applies to that, it applies to the Rey situation too.
That's what it should do. You're correct. The problem with with what happened with Rey, why people see this, and yes, it's the internet argument, not even going to argue against that, is that she was a Mary Sue from the get-go, but it's the off-screen development, the off-screen skills that she definitely had. She already knows how to fight, she knows how to protect herself, she knows about tech because she's been tearing down ships for scrap to live for most of her life. You know, she's been sold into slavery. She has to defend herself from these other fucking people just to get by. You know, it's not a fucking easy world that she's living in. And so the only thing that she technically didn't know how to do was fly a ship or use a lightsaber or maybe even technically a gun, even though we don't know that she had or had not at any point. But she gets put in situations where that's where the quote unquote force has to take over. Like, I've never piloted a ship, but I technically know how they work, so I should be able to. And then that's where the dumb force sensibility, the dyad situation, because I think one thing they implied with that whole thing that they retconned in 9 where they're connected is that some of Kylo's skills were bleeding into her by their connection.
Oh, God.
No, but think about
Just
that.
like they did with like Assassin's Creed with the Animus bleed over and all that stuff.
So think about it this way. They're connected through the Force because the Force is trying to balance itself out again because the dark side has taken way too much hold. So with the Force being the magical solution to everything, Kylo is a bigger badass than Vader at this particular moment. He is. He's insanely skilled. He's been trained by Luke, at least. I don't know about the best, and taken over by Snoke, which we know is, of course, not real. So he's got all the skills. He's got all the power. He's feared by everyone. And then all of a sudden, his exact opposite is coming up out of nowhere with zero training. He know all the skills that she displays throughout the movies until she finally gets training. He already has. And if they say that they have a mystical direct force connection, whether that was, Palpatine thought it had something to do with him directly, that's the problem with the way that that trilogy was written. It's incoherent story from the get-go.
Yeah.
But that's if people can be connected through the Force so that you can sense that someone died halfway across the fucking galaxy, you're going to tell me that the biggest Force badass that's almost ever existed isn't going to and has an established connection to our main character who doesn't have any skills, and suddenly she has skills? Like, yeah, there's going to be something where the Force kind of needs to make shit happen. It's like, look, we need you to be able to do this, so we're going to just kind of give you the bump. It's like, look, we know you don't know how to influence people with the Force, but you've seen someone do it. It's been done to you, so you could just sort of assume that it can be a thing. You're just going to try it out. Like when she uses her powers on Daniel Craig to unlock the thing and leave the gun. It's like she had never done that before, but he had been torturing her, trying to use the Force in her brain to do things. But assuming, and I'm just making this up off the top of my head, assuming that her Mary Sue-ness actually came from the fact that the Prince of Darkness was already such a fucking badass and she's connected to him through things she can't possibly even understand, that some of his skills are bleeding over into her.
Yeah, but so even people who are listening understand, I'm not negating what Mike's saying. What I'm working to negate against
I know what
is
you're saying.
The internet argument. It's even the phrasing. We call her a Mary Sue. Well, then Luke Skywalker is a Jim Bob, because
that's a Gary Stew.
It's the same exact thing.
It's true.
It's literally the same thing.
But we do.
It's just one's a boy and one's a girl. We knew before the other. So what it comes down to is we as a species, which is true, do not like change. Nope. We don't like stuff to be different. We want it to be the same. We want the sun to rise in the east and set in the west. If we woke up tomorrow and the sun came from the north and went to the south, everybody would lose their fucking shit.
Well,
even
gravity
if it didn't
would probably be different.
Even if all the gravity stayed the same and everything still worked the same, we'd flip out just because it's different. That's just in us. Difference means bad. Something's changed, therefore something can go wrong. Therefore, our lizard brain wants to destroy it because it's not right. And my argument against the internet argument of it is it's always been that way. Literally, the only difference between Luke and Rey's story is their gender. That's it. The base story is exactly the same. Yep. That was one of the biggest arguments people made against 7 and 8 was it was just remakes of 4 and 5. So
Yeah,
it
but I
can't
mean,
be a
9
remake
was
of the
too.
same story.
Nine was
No,
basically a repeat.
nine's trash. I would never compare anything to 9. Fuck 9.
Yes, 9 doesn't
Yeah,
exist. That's why I
9.
said it wasn't a trilogy. It was only a
Yeah,
duology.
it's in there with bat nipples. Fuck that garbage. And there's things that I like about 9, but they ruined it by making it about 9 should have been. This is the only thing I'm gonna say about this because I know we're on a time limit and we don't want to get into this too far. But 9 should have been a trilogy of itself. If they had made 9 into the trilogy, nobody would hate this trilogy because then the whole story was about Palpatine from get-go. Trying to make this pop-up surprise, oh
The,
oops, it's Palpatine
there,
bullshit was
there's no way
garbage.
there's no way to fix it because it was never right to
Yep.
begin with, because it was never written to begin with. No one person. It should have been
Yeah.
given. It should. Okay, I'm gonna finish this whole Star Wars argument real quick, and then we'll move on, because we got from Moon Knight to here, so we need to find
Yeah.
some kind of track back. So the main problem with the Star Wars, the final trilogy, the sequel trilogy, is that there was never a singular person who had a singular plan across the trilogy. It was given to J.J. Abrams, and it was given to I almost said Ryan Adams, Ryan Johnson, and then
Ryan Johnson.
yeah,
Ruin Johnson.
shut up.
No.
Ryan Johnson is fantastic. But then they didn't know what to do when it came to 9. They got rid of Ryan, brought back JJ to redo whatever or do 9, fix the problem with 8, and then that was they spent most of 9 fixing 8, and that's all it was. And that's why it was a movie by Twitter. That's what it was. The Twitter outrage rewrote whatever happened because they could not. What you said, we don't like change, we don't like difference. Episode 8 brought in the biggest possible change to the storyline. People raged against it, so they said, nope, hold on, we got to course correct, because nobody can deal with Luke being a faulty hero, because he can't possibly be someone who could have flaws and get things wrong, because fucking idiots. They missed the point of 8. Then 9 happens by committee, literally by Twitter committee, and then that's what happened. When you, it's not like the cinema. Hold on, like I'm going to cut this and then it's going to be over. Sorry, we got to get back on track. Like you said, we got a time limit. We're already at an hour and a half. Had it done what Kevin Feige has done with the Star Wars thing, if you had one person who said, "Here's our beginning point and here's our current ending point," and then you write every story in between, or at least fucking have an outline from one end to the other, and you follow those guidelines under the direction of one fucking person, you get good series of shit. But
the opposite side of that is Star Wars, because 4, 5, and 6, Lucas had the framework, but 5 and 6 were written by somebody else, so they just dangled stuff off of his framework.
They were directed by someone different,
and rewritten by those people. Like
not wholly, but somewhat, yes. But
they
this
rewrote
is
it to make it make sense, because when you leave George Lucas alone to do his stuff from start to finish, you get 1, 2, and 3, and he's a fucking psycho. And those movies were crazy. I don't care what anybody says. From a movie standpoint, those movies were nuts.
But the idea is that the concept of the trilogy was there. It's just whether or not someone tweaked it along the point. Like even like Darth Vader wasn't gonna. They should have
gave it back to JJ.
No,
they should have gave it to somebody else, a whole third person. Here's the framework. Everybody's done their own little bit on it. Here's a third person. Put your own little bit on it, and hopefully it all kind of makes sense as long as we stay in that shell.
As long as do your story within the framework.
Should have just let Lucas do the last 3 as was originally intended.
No.
And leave
I will never agree to that, because I've seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, and that dude's a fucking psycho.
No, so George Lucas needs to stay away from Star Wars and just collect checks. But what they should have done was like The Mandalorian is basically run by Filoni and Favreau, but they're letting other people come in and do things, and in some cases, it's done well. But when you get the same,
there's some real diamonds in that.
But you get in that same vein, you get the Book of Boba Fett, which was given to the wrong person, and then when the right people take over, you get goodness. And we saw exactly that. The Book of Boba Fett is a microcosm of how to try to stay in a storyline, but giving it to the wrong person in the first place. It's like, but that when you have no overall direction at all. So when they were doing the final trilogy, they had no overall direction. They had no concept of where they were going from movie to movie. It's like they wanted to make 7, but they had no concept of 8 or 9 even going to be an actual thing. And so that's why J.J. Abrams didn't write anything. That's why it was given to Ryan Johnson, who I think still did a phenomenal job on 8 with what he was given. And then J.J. Abrams came back in to fix 8, not make
Okay.
9. And I think that's just the problem, because you didn't give one person the creative direction to lay it all out from day one.
Real quick plug to our Podfather is anybody who hates 8, go look up Bobby Skullface's video on episode 8 and Luke Skywalker
And how it saves
And
Luke Skywalker.
I'm going to tell you right now, I hated 8 until I watched his videos, thought about what he said, and went back and rewatched it, and it changed my perspective on it.
Yeah.
And
I respectfully disagree. That's all.
You hate 8 regardless, huh?
It's trash.
But have you
Sorry.
seen Bobby's video on it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well then
Still
your
disagree.
aversion to changed.
But I mean, I'm not even gonna say he's wrong. It just means he likes it differently than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And
Well,
all I'm saying is,
like I'm saying, if he, like he says, if you like it, you win.
right.
But is it also if you hate it, you win?
I feel bad that he. But
See,
see, that's the thing. As a nerd,
the thing is,
fan, I feel bad that he hates it because I know how it makes me feel to hate 9. So I feel bad that he hates 8.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because as a fan, I want all of us to like all of it. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
nobody in the
too.
fandom goes,
I
I hope they make a really shitty Marvel movie because I really want to hate this movie. Nobody thinks
They
that
already
way.
made shitty Marvel movies now.
Oh,
So.
of course.
Have you not seen Shang-Chi?
I like Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi was
You're
fine.
barking up the wrong tree.
Aquafina was the worst thing about that. Aquafina was the
Eternals
worst.
are so bad. Oh my god.
Eternals is trash.
Eternals
But
is trash.
Aquafina couldn't ruin that movie for me. That was a good movie.
Well, I didn't say
Her
ruin the
being
movie. I
not
said
being
she
it.
was the bad part of the movie.
Yeah.
But we're getting off topic yet again.
Well, not really, because we do have Marvel to talk about here in a minute.
But I just want people listening to know that it has nothing to do with hating what Mike's saying. It's not agreeing with the internet argument of it. I want to make sure people take that away.
I think we established that you don't
debating,
agree
we're
with
not
him for that
arguing.
reason.
Yeah. We're debating, we're not arguing. People need to
Right.
learn there's a huge difference between those things.
Yeah.
Arguing involves animosity, and I don't have animosity towards Mike.
Ditto.
I disagree with what he's saying, and he made his case, I'm making my case. That's called debating. And people on the internet need to learn the difference between arguing and debating, and the world will be a better place.
'Tis an art lost.
I'm pretty sure
Many.
that it's I'm right, you're wrong, shut up and die is really what it comes down to. And I don't mean that from my point of view. I'm talking about that's the internet's point of view.
Yes,
I'm right, you're wrong,
that's
shut
exactly
up and die. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's how
Which is
cancel
what's
culture
wrong with
came
the
about.
internet.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats.